The church sees the practice of homosexuality as being incompatible with the creation stories relating man and woman in Genesis. In the opening chapters of Genesis, the creation of the sexes by God is presented as having a twofold purpose. Men and women are meant to come together in one flesh unity of life. Genesis chapter 2 verse 24. And to beget children. Genesis 1:28. Since sexual activity was seen to be ordered to procreation and the continuance of human race, any form of sexual activity other than heterosexual intercourse is against nature and is a clear violation of right reason. To choose someone of the same sex for one's sexual activity or for marriage is to annul the rich symbolism and meaning, not to mention the goals of God's sexual design. Homosexual activity is not a complementary union able to transmit life, and so it thwarts the call to a life of that form of self-giving which the gospel says is the essence of Christian living. 2. The church makes a distinction between the homosexual condition or tendency and the individual homosexual actions. For the church, the latter is intrinsically disordered and is in no case to be approved of. In other words, while the church does not condemn people for being homosexuals or for having the homosexual tendency, it condemns the homosexual acts that homosexuals perform. 3. Although the particular inclination of the homosexual person is not a sin, it is a more or less strong tendency ordered towards an intrinsic moral evil, and thus the inclination itself must be seen as an objective disorder. 4. The church rejects the unfounded and demeaning assumption that the sexual behavior of homosexual persons is always and very compulsive, and therefore they should not be blamed for their homosexual acts. 5. Even though the church strongly condemns homosexual acts, it insists that the rights of the homosexuals as persons should be respected. Homosexuals are also human beings, created in the image of God, and they should enjoy the same fundamental human rights that all peoples enjoy. However, what are these human rights? By human rights, we mean the universal, inviolable, and inalienable rights that are due to the human person as a rational being possessing a free will. Human rights protect or are intended to protect the dignity of the human person against state and society. Specific human rights include the right to life, personal liberty, and due process of law, to freedom of thought, expression, religion, organization, and movement, to freedom from discrimination on the basis of race, religion, age, language, and sex, to basic education, to enjoy employment, and to property. Nevertheless, according to the Church's understanding of human rights, the rights of homosexuals as persons do not include the right of a man to marry a man or of a woman to marry a woman. For the church, this is morally wrong and goes against God's purpose for marriage. We should also point out that the European Court for Human Rights has ruled that same-sex marriages, in inverted commas, are not considered a human right, making it clear that homosexual partnerships do not, in fact, equal marriages between a man and a woman. The ruling was announced 9th June 2016 in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, France. Nonetheless, in the view of the Church, it is not right to subject homosexuals to any form of harassment simply because they are homosexuals. The intrinsic dignity of each person must always be respected in word, in action, and in law.